What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at the 4-3-3 and how we can apply modern concepts to this initial formation to make it more relevant in today's game, because we do see less and less teams using it. But before we start, please check out my book. It's on Amazon, it's online, there's a link in the description below, and be sure to check out my blog as well. I've been trying to post a lot of free content on there on Medium. A link is also in the description below for that, so be sure to check those two things out. I've been trying to produce as much content in a variety of ways for everybody who follows me, so be sure to follow me on Medium as well. But let's get right into it. So I don't think the 4-3-3 or any formation for that matter is ever gonna go away. I just think they're going to adapt and change with times, and new concepts are going to be applied to them. So a few ways we can see this changing over time is the concepts being applied. So with more and more teams using 4 players in the midfield areas, we saw the revelation of the false 9 not too long ago, and then inverted wingers. Liverpool still used this quite a lot. And then this would elicit a response from the fullbacks, either going into wider areas, which would then probably have one of the attacking midfielders drop into a deeper area, or one of the fullbacks staying a bit deeper, creating a back 3. I'm going to avoid talking about creating a back 3 using their 4 defenders, because this is something I feel that a lot of people talk about and is very apparent in a lot of the match analysis I post. So more likely now, if we have wide fullbacks creating width and slightly more narrow wingers, we have the ability to bring these wingers into the half space in a variety of different ways. Whereas if we had narrow fullbacks, these fullbacks would then be responsible for occupying a deeper line in the half space, whether it be a full inversion of the fullback or just a deep lying fullback creating a back 3, either asymmetrically or slotting in as just a natural wide central defender. But either way, we're going to look at more movement from the wingers into the half space. So if we take these away, we often can see the 8s or 10 dropping deeper as a deep lying playmaker, then occupying both half spaces in the first and second line of build-up. So we'll see a central defender most likely come into the half space on this side with the ball, and now we have our 8 on the weak side dropping to the half space. So in the first and second line, we have access in both half spaces, a bit of staggering as well. If we just bring our 6 over a little bit, we have staggering and occupation in both half spaces to build up and use them differently. So the central defender will use this as more of a route of progression to then drive through past the 2 forwards and pull out a midfielder to then create 2v1 advantage further up the field or create space in a more dangerous area. Whereas on the weak side, this player can be used as a link into a more advanced position, or as a player to then shorten the passing distance and make the wide area more accessible. So it can also disrupt the shifting. So if the midfielders shift, then it would create an imbalance and the defense would be much more narrow than they need to be, which would then create the possibility to progress via mid-range pass. But the big thing here is now the wingers and how the space between the lines is going to be used. Now, pretty typically, it's used by a simple inversion, and then now we have 2 players occupying the half space, single width on one side, and now we can start to see even more of a double pivot if now the 8 drops deeper, and now we have a more natural double pivot occupying both of the central strikers, the fullback creating width, and now with the double pivot we can have a little bit more rotation, creating a 3-1 build-up against 2 forwards, or as we've seen before with wide fullbacks, and if the team is set on building with 2 central defenders, we'll split them both in the half space, send the double pivot a little bit more apart in the central corridor, and now with our wide fullbacks, we'll have 2 3v1 or 3v2 build-up shapes isolating the 2 forwards and the wingers. So we'll have our fullback, our 8, and our central defender, as we can just highlight here. So we'll have a bit of numerical superiority here and on this weak side as well. So with this numerical advantage, it may lead to jumping defenders from deeper areas. To compensate for this, whether it be with a vertical partnership between the forward and the central midfielder, which would then create space to potentially be accessed between the lines if the team remains unbalanced, and then the fullback can further advance. It also creates slightly more stability with our double pivot, even though the central area is quite vacated, which could be potentially a lot of danger if the players aren't very competent in possession and have a high level of decision making and aren't afraid to just simply use their goalkeeper if they run into trouble and start over. So I think that's a big thing in today's game. A lot of times players try and overcomplicate things with playing forward or breaking lines, when simply to maintain possession rather than forcing something, they have the easy option on. But the big thing now, we have our 4-man midfield, and we still have dual width on one side, which can simply be changed if our 10 occupies a more central position, taking advantage of the forward pinning, and now our other winger can occupy both half spaces. We have presence in both of them and an overload in this central corridor. But if teams don't want to use this, they can simply leave their 10 and still invert their 11, and now we have a more comprehensive pinning of the back four using 2 players, and now we almost have a 4-4-2. So this is what I mean by, I don't think a formation per se is ever going to go out of style, just the concepts and how it's applied are going to be completely different. With our more typical 4-3-3 though, it is worth mentioning we can still see teams creating concepts like the Rondo, as we see here. So 4 players in the initial build-up, trying to isolate 2 players on the ball, and only the 2 players within first line passing options we consider active defenders. So this player would not be active, because you would think if the ball is played here, the player who is receiving the ball should not allow the player defending him to come around and take the ball. And typically if they did, it would end up in the result in a foul. So these are our active defenders, and we create a 4 versus 2, which should guarantee progression for our team in possession. Or we can also see 3rd-man concepts still, targeting the holding midfielder if they have a very good holding midfielder on the ball who is capable of dealing with a high volume of passes. So I just wanted to make that last point there. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.